You said that the block caving, you left the block caving to go over to the pit, and you thought someday you'd come back to go to the virgin ore that was down below. At what level did you stop the block caving and plan to come back?
Well, we stopped the block caving at 1,300. The next one was to be 1,600. It was 300 foot lifts.
So you never got below the 1,600 foot level, right?
We did as far as some of the development work.
Yeah.
2,000 level connected to the limit shaft.
The fires, you said there were fires still going. Where were they? From what mines?
Oh, no, yeah. I'm not sure, but in that, the Anaconda, I'm pretty sure was one over around the West Calusa, that area. But they have what they call the Firefill crew, and the reason they call it Firefill is that's all they did way back when. It was quenched fires by introducing Taylor. So, as I said before, in order to eliminate or at least reduce the risk of fire when we put new workings into these old areas, they started doing this within around 1948, 49. It was still going on for 2 years after we started mining. Herb Wendell was in charge of it, Hale Strock, and they brought tailings over from Anaconda to finer clay material, mixed it up with about 50% water, took it down in pipes, and with the hydraulic pressure of death, they'd introduce it into concrete bulkheads and literally just oozed it into the old broken up areas. And it welled up and built up into the, hopefully, it throws off all the voids, quench out any sense of fire. And that was done in some records there somewhere. 30 million tons or something, big tonnage. And we were working through the Leonard shaft, the Greta shaft, and the Calusa shafts. And so I had various access points. And generally they tried to inject it into the entire area that was going to be blockaded. They didn't get it all covered for sure, at least within 95.
You were mentioning the Belmont was a hot mine, the Stewart was a hot mine, and now could you explain your understanding of the heat that's naturally in the hill, at depth, how it works and about how hot it is? I mean, what conclusions did you draw about the heat that's underground?
Well, it's nature at work, that's all. We're pretty close to some hot batholith down there somewhere, I guess. Yellowstone Park's a good indication of it. So you'd have to talk to a geologist to get a good explanation. It's a natural phenomenon. This isn't the only place in the world. There's a place, a small silver mine in Nevada within 50 miles of where I live. And they had literally boiling water down on about 100 feet from surface.
And what was your experience here about the heat? I mean, how hot did it get when you were doing your planning?
Well, as I told you, as I recall, around 5,000 feet down in the Stewart, or almost any of the mines, it was around 120 degree rock temperature. So the air would heat up to that temperature if you didn't do something about it.
And then the water would generally be that hot too?
Somewhat, but remember now we were introducing an awful lot of water with this backfilling of tailings that we used in the later years at least. That was almost 50% water. In the wintertime, in order to keep the water lines from freezing, I saw we used to open the bleed that was as big as a 4-inch pipe wide open, running wide to keep it moving through the pipes, which were not covered in those downcast shafts, 30 below zero.
Yeah.
I asked John Kawhi, I said, how do you ever keep those pipes from freezing in the winter? He said, you bleed it. And believe me, there were some bleeds, so there was a lot of water introduced into the mines, as well as the natural groundwater that came from rain and so forth.
So if a person, is it fair to, obviously there's bulkheads throughout the hill, and gob has been reintroduced, but if you had ventilation maps and showed the downcast shafts, the upcast shafts, and then the drains that say it went to the IO, are there certain drifts that go clear through the hill?
Yes.
Which ones come to your mind?
3,900 is other drainage levels, and that was one. There were more than that, I think, because of the, actually, there must be some maps available on that. I know I had one in my file somewhere. That, you know, a cross-section like this, kind of a glorified thing, that showed the main drainage system and how the water got collected from the orphan girl all the way to here.
And those would be still, the water would still be running through those things.
Frank Laird is still alive and well at Flathead Lake. Get hold of him, I'm sure he could even sketch a one if he can.
Okay.
Walter Unger, who lives up at Georgetown Lake, was also in that department.
Is that a ventilation department or?
Yeah, well, they started out as a ventilation department. And then, what was it, 1965, they developed the environmental department.
Oh, okay.
The rise in the problem, they enlarged the department, and Jack Warren was the head of it, and Frank Laird, Unger, there was at least a half a dozen of them. And every mine, of course, had a ventilation engineer.
Now, there's lots of stories about the records of the mines. Now, and I'm trying to figure out where all the records are. We know that there's some up in the Kelly. We know that there were a lot of records down in the Butte Water Company offices. There were some in the Hennessy building that got moved into the basement. Now, what do you remember about the records? For example, where were the engineering records for the gallows frames?
In the engineering department on the 5th floor of the Hennessy.
And were they there last, did you remember, or they?
Yeah, that was just shortly after I left in '72, they started to tear that whole situation apart.
And what was over in the Butte Water Company?
That I don't know, they're probably the water company records, I'm sure.
We have pretty much everything from the water company here, with the exception of stuff involved with litigation.
So are any of those old timers still alive or not? John Hazen in my time, I know he's long since dead, and then there was, what was his name?
Skip Dumpy's the only guy that's still at the company that I know who would have
Wayne
any...
Young was the last one when I left here. And then I don't know who succeeded him.
And then, do you know where the other places where the records went to, like other states?
Well, the records, calling the archives, I did, but Tom Weigel was our journalist, personnel man, wrote all the articles for the newspapers and stuff. But he had kept as many, what they call the old card house files, the hiring records and the work records of them, all handwritten. Those were first in the Moonlight area down here, and then when subsidence got in the way of that, they were moved to the Black Rock Hoist House, I think it was. And then when the pit waste disposal started to encroach in that area, they were moved down to the Stewart Hoist House, the last I heard of. And I remember mentioning to Tom Weigel, I said, well, while you're moving all these things, take a look and see if you can find John J. or Jack Hannifan's name in there and see where he worked and what he got paid and so forth. He found it. Stupidly, I never got a copy of it. He worked 3 years and he was in the Bell Diamond and the Metal Sweat. Something like $4.50 a shift, 13 days on and 3 days off.
And this is in 1903?
Yeah.
And then, so the records were around for that far back?
Yeah.
Wow.
They were there in 1972, they were out over in the Stewart Hoist House. I don't know what they came.
Well, they're not there now, are they, John?
No, maybe they're down under the hoist. Maybe they're in the basement or something. I'll have to look real close.
I never really saw them.